Welcome to the Movies to Watch Before You Die podcast. My name is Gab.
I'm Dylan.
And we are your hosts for the next hour and change. And I just don't understand, like, no matter how many days we do, I'm acting like we haven't done this a million times.
I feel like you actively tried to botch that.
No, I really didn't. I got confident because I said my own name correctly.
Oh my God.
All right.
It takes so little for you to become cocky with this. Do you want to start again?
Yeah, but don't just leave this, all right?
Okay, let's just
Okay. Ooh. Welcome to the Movies to Watch Before You Die podcast. My name is Gab, and I'm here with my co-host,
Dylan.
And we are about to talk about one of my favorite movies of all time, based on one of my favorite books of all time, and that is The Great Gatsby. This movie is from 2013. It's directed by Baz Luhrmann. It stars Leonardo DiCaprio, Carey Mulligan, and Tobey Maguire. But first, Dylan, tell the people why they're listening to us.
Well, you're listening to me because I'm a former video editor who also just loves watching movies like I hope you do too. Gab, why are they listening to you?
Well, I'm a former actor who also loves movies. So that's why, Dylan.
Jot that down.
Don't question me again.
Okay.
So let's get into this. We are talking about the 2013 adaptation of The Great Gatsby. I think it's worth mentioning that after I finished watching this, I was sobbing. And I sent Dylan a picture of me crying and said, just watch The Great Gatsby. And Dylan somehow interpreted this as laughter and asked me why I thought it was funny.
No. You are totally mischaracterizing our textversation. Where you had said you were sobbing. I said something slightly not related, and you said, oh, I said that I had happened to just watch it too. And you said, so funny. And then kept talking. And I was like, what's funny? Like, I was confused. No, not the same.
Well, it was funny that we had both watched it on the same night.
It was quite the coinky dink.
Anyway, I want to start by saying that this book is obviously well known. Did you read this in high school?
Nope.
What?
Gab, I told you before, I don't know how to read.
I'm sorry. I keep making you feel bad about it.
No, no, we never read this in high school.
Wow, I'm shocked. And you had never seen this before?
No, I think I remember when it was coming out. And they were like, The Great Gatsby in 3D. And I was like, why?
Yeah. That's so interesting. It's such a commonly read piece of literature in high school because it hits all the boxes of ways to like analyze literature. But okay, that's interesting. Well, I love the book. I've always loved the book, and I thought this movie was just fantastic from start to finish. So I'm very excited to get into it with you. And I think we can go right ahead and summarize a little bit. Oh, no. Why? What's wrong with me? We need to talk about the plot summary. Dylan, what is this movie all about? Tell the people.
What's this all been about? What am I working toward?
You think you know everything about me, don't you?
I bet you're bottom. I bloody well ought to.
Thank you. So now it's my time to say what this movie's about. And it's really just about Tobey Maguire is kind of also in love with Jay Gatsby. And he decides to cuck himself and allow Jay Gatsby to be with Daisy Buchanan. And in the process, not realizing that Daisy Buchanan's already married to Tom is very upset by this. And sort of drama ensues from there.
Hey, that's not at all what it's about?
Yeah, the more real plot summary is that Nick is talking about Jay Gatsby and Jay Gatsby's everlasting hope and desire to be with Daisy, who he met 5 years ago, and the mystery surrounding Jay Gatsby. And I feel like the surface plot is much less interesting than the underground plot, but I'm having a hard time summarizing the plot of this succinctly. Jay Gatsby wants to be with Daisy. Daisy's already with somebody else. That's the very surface version of this.
Okay. Why don't you read what IMDb has to say before you break my heart even further?
Thank you so much, because I'm doing a terrible job of this. The IMDb plot summary says a writer and Wall Street trader, Nick, finds himself drawn to the past and lifestyle of his millionaire neighbor, Jay Gatsby.
I suppose. All right.
Gab, do you want to tell me what The Great Gatsby's about before I read the taglines?
Well, I don't want to get...
I will say, before I let you answer the question that I just asked you, I really like, I I do kind of want to read the book after watching the movie because I
It's
feel like there's
phenomenal.
more to it that I want to know about. But
There is more to
what
it.
would you say succinctly the book/movie is about?
I would say that it is about a young man who falls in love with a woman who is in a different social class than he is, and his attempt to turn himself into someone worthy of her love. And in the process of searching for perfection, loses her. He goes off to war and he writes her a letter that says, "I'm back from the war, but I'm not quite, I don't have any money. I'm not good enough for you yet." And while he's off trying to become something and he gets involved with the wrong people in doing so, Daisy marries somebody else and has a kid. And when he finally is ready and wealthy and has this beautiful property across the river, across the sound, I
The Long
suppose
Island
it is
Sound, I
from
guess
her.
it is.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the Long Island Sound. Across the dock, I believe they say from her. He truly believes that he can just get her back, sweep her off her feet. And he even goes as far as to try to control exactly how it happens. Like he wants it to seem like it's a coincidence that they stumble to Nick's house, for tea at the same time and whatever. And it really is just about whether or not you can go back in time and whether or not you can control the events that happen in life and to create something perfect. And we'll get into that a little bit further, but I would say that's what the story is about.
Do you want to hear the taglines for the 2013 film?
I do.
Can't repeat the past? Of course you can.
Lame. That's horrible. That's
It
actually
is-
a slap in the face.
When you think of like what you're talking about this movie being about, I'm like, this tagline with the question mark, ellipses, and exclamation point, I hate it. Reserving judgments is a matter of infinite hope. I come to the admission that it has a limit.
I love that. That's a direct quote from the book.
Yeah, but it's weak as a tagline.
It doesn't work as a tagline.
Yeah.
But,
That's the best thing a girl can be in this world, a beautiful little fool.
I mean, that's also a direct quote from the book, but okay. I think they probably could have gone with "a little party never killed nobody," but okay.
Gab, that is so much better than any of the taglines I'm about to read to you that I
Thank you. Thank you for the round of applause.
so much better. And now let me keep reading these terrible ones. They were careless people, Tom and Daisy. They smashed up things and creatures and then retreated back into their money or their vast carelessness.
I mean, again, direct quote from the book, but doesn't really work as a tagline.
I can't really picture a poster with that on it because that is
Yeah.
long. There was an immediately perceptible vitality about her as if the nerves of her body were continually smoldering.
I'm over this.
Let me guess, is that a quote from the book as well?
Yes.
I've just heard the most amazing thing, and here I am tantalizing you. That's better, I feel like. And
No.
also a quote from the movie, but it's like that feels more succinct and more tagliney.
I think it could have been, "I just heard the most amazing thing." But even so, it should have been "a little party never killed nobody."
That's definitely better.
Yeah,
That is
thank you.
better than any of those mediocre ones.
Thank you so much.
All right. Gab, is it opinion time?
Yeah, I think it's opinion time.
In this critic's opinion,
That's just like your opinion, man.
Well, I have a right to my opinion, and my opinion is you have no right to your opinion.
So, Gab, it seems like you have a lot to say about it. So I want to hear more from you about the movie. And I feel like you're definitely going to end up talking more about the actual story than I am on this one.
Yeah. So let me start by just assuming that most people are at least familiar with the story because you either read the book in high school, you read the book in college, you read the book because it's like one of the most popular books of all time. You've seen the movie or something. So I don't want to like give too many details just for the sake of time. But I would say that this movie, let's first discuss the filmmaking as a whole. So Baz Luhrmann is known for his theatrical style, the music. He obviously did Romeo and Juliet, also with Leonardo DiCaprio. He did Moulin Rouge, very like over the top, easy to watch, like so much going on, visual films. So I think this movie is phenomenal in the way that it looks. The party scenes at Gatsby's mansion are unbelievable. There's so much to look at. There's so much going on. The music, I think, is awesome. So the soundtrack very heavily features Jay-Z, and there's nothing in this world I love more than like a genre mashup where it's like 20s sounding music with like the horns and, you know, the very like flapper-esque kind of sound, but with like modern music over it.
Very horny music.
Yes, so horny. I just think I think visually it's stunning. I think the music is stunning, and I think the acting is phenomenal. I think Leonardo DiCaprio is so fucking good, and we owed him an Oscar a long time ago, and it definitely wasn't for that fucking bear movie. But anyway.
Oh, I was gonna say it's probably not for this either. Not that he's not good. I don't know.
No.
Like I think I have to remember what else came out this year, but he was good. I don't know if he's
good.
Best actor good for this one.
Yeah, I don't think this is one of those movies that really even like goes for a best, you know what I mean? But anyway, so now the story, I think this story, and I'm going to try not to talk about the book, although it's going to be hard. I think the story is absolutely perfect. And here's why. Number one, and this is one of my favorite things about this story, Nick, as the narrator, openly admits to not being a super reliable source. Like, you are getting this information secondhand. He talks about how he never really drank until he was around them. And there are definitely times when he gets drunk, it doesn't really remember what happens. There are times when he tells you what other people told him, or the rumors that have been going around, or what he assumes happens. But it's not like we have this like omnipotent narrator who sees all. So I think that's really cool, because it really does make it feel like you're here, like they're people. It's like a gossipy kind of thing where it's like people that you know.
Do you feel like the movie shows you that he's an unreliable narrator, or do you feel like you know that more because of the book?
I probably know that more because of the book, but I do think so this whole idea of Nick writing a novel about what happens is not in the book. I think that's just how they so they sort of wrap up Nick as F. Scott Fitzgerald,
it's a framing device.
Yeah. But that's not what happens in the book. I think they do an okay job of it, but I definitely don't think it's super prevalent, because obviously, like, we don't really see things through Nick's eyes, even though he's narrating. We often like see what is actually happening.
So can I talk about a story thing that I don't like, that I think I wonder if it's different in the book?
Sure.
They do the reveal of, obviously we're getting into spoiler territory once we're in opinion time, so everybody's sure. They do the reveal of who Jay Gatsby actually is twice.
Yeah.
And I sort of wish they didn't, because the fact that they reveal it to me midway through the movie and then again towards the end, I'm like, why do this now?
Yeah.
Because the fact that they do it in the middle of the movie makes it so much less powerful when it's coming out at the end of the movie.
Yeah. You know, I'm going to be honest with you, Dylan. I don't remember if that comes out in the middle of the book, because if you think about it, the last like 100 times I've read this book, which I think the last time I read this was like my freshman year of college. So it's been a while, or my sophomore year of college, but I don't remember. What I do think is, what I was going to say is I've always known who Gatsby was since I read it the first time. So it's hard for me to remember exactly when that gets revealed. But I hear you, and I don't necessarily disagree with that. What I do think is important, and what I think maybe happened, and maybe you are misinterpreting, is that we hear a lot of like, he kind of tells like one version, which is very like half truthy, where he says like, oh, you know, I went to Oxford, and then it becomes, well, I went to Oxford for a little while, and then it becomes he didn't go to Oxford at all. You know what I mean? Like it's like he says this blatant lie, and then he like kind of tells a little bit of truth, and then at the end you find out what really happened.
Yeah, I don't think the movie does a good enough job of that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I would have liked him to be more of a mystery until the end then, because then it would have hit harder. And I do really like that scene in the Plaza Hotel. Like, I think that is so, with as little action as possible, it's really such a climactic moment when Tom, again, I know you don't watch It's Always Sunny, but there's this line in It's Always Sunny, you're new poor, we're old poor. And I just thought of it a million times during this, with the whole, well, they're the old money, he's new money.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
no matter how wealthy he is, he can't be old money.
Right.
And I do think that subtextual classism is a much more interesting thing to me than like him and Daisy, because the longer I got into the movie, like I was like, Daisy felt like such a bland character to me, and I was also like, Daisy's sort of a gold digging hoe. Like I was like, Daisy, you the worst.
Yes. And that's exactly right. And I think Daisy is meant to be this very vanilla character, this very like, because the point is that you start to realize that Jay Gatsby is not in love with Daisy. He's in love with the idea that he has created in his head that she could not live up to.
Mhm.
And obviously she doesn't, because the Daisy that he imagines was going to run away and leave Tom or tell Tom she never left it. Like she was going to do whatever she needed to do so they could be together. And she's obviously not certain she wants to do that. And frankly, we know from the beginning that Tom does not treat her well. So it's not like she's madly in love with him and they have this great relationship. She probably would have been well within her right to leave Tom to be with him, but she opted not to, because she's just kind of like a go with the flow, kind of like, oh, I'm going to take the path of least resistance kind of girl.
Well, Tom's even richer. Tom is classic old money, but Tom is the worst.
Yeah.
Tom, like, I wish they made him even more the worst, because when it does, what?
Sorry, go ahead.
The moments that they show him being the worst, each time, like, I would like write down, like, oh my God, Tom sucks. But I like, there's also so many times where they make Tom seem charming, likable, affable, and I'm like, no, make him the worst, because this guy is supposed to be symbolic of the wealthy elite, and we are supposed to be condemning that. And there's an aspect of which I feel like, from what little I watched and being told about the book and, you know, certain videos and behind the scenes stuff I'm watching, that the book is meant to condemn the wealthy, condemn the elite, the fact that they do the least work while the poorer people are doing all the work and giving the money all the way up, which feels very realistic. And I could go on my capitalism rant right now, but whatever. You know which character I wish I could have seen more of? Jason Clarke's character, Wilson, because he to me is like the only real victim in this movie.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Jay Gatsby is like a victim of himself in the sense that it was like, well, he sort of could have had everything he wanted, but he couldn't have it exactly the way he wanted it, and that was his downfall.
Yeah.
And I do like the fact that Tom just sort of like gets everything he wants in the end. Like it all works out for Tom. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, not necessarily, because his mistress dies.
Oh, boo-hoo, I love my mistress.
I know, and he'll get another one, right?
Yeah, he'll be
but
fine.
I do think it is really important that Tom is not depicted as the absolute worst, because if he were, it would be like, of course Daisy's going to leave him. Like he's a monster, because she obviously does have the capacity to love Jay Gatsby. Like she clearly feels for him the way that he feels for her. I agree. But I think Tom has to have some charm. He has to have a little bit of appeal, because she it can't be obvious, or else there's no plot. I also think that there's a big part of this story that I hope I'm not making up, that exists in the book that doesn't exist in the movie. And that's this idea that like her family very much wanted her to be with a rich, wealthy guy. They obviously love him. He was this phenomenal polo player. He had all of these things going for him, that like, if he were truly the worst and he were like that bad, you wouldn't understand the like, oh, I could leave him to be with this amazing guy who clearly would do anything for me. But he has my like it. There needed to be a little bit of humanity to him, and I think in the scene where they're talking and he's saying like, you know, Jay, or maybe it's Nick sees them talking after she runs over Myrtle with the car, and he's saying like, it's going to be okay. You know, we're going to take care of this. We're going to get out of here. Like he could be losing his mind on her, because obviously he was upset that Myrtle died, but like he's got to have a little bit of humanity where you can see why Daisy would leave with him.
You're right about that. I just feel like he could have been a little bit worse, because I think in the end, the moment where Gatsby loses her it's another moment of Tom being the worst and getting the win. Yeah. Tom is pointing out like, you're new money, you're nobody, you're nothing, you're crap. And Tom, you know, Gatsby flips on him and is like, you know, cocked back to punch him, screaming at him, and it's like, oh, you are trash, just like I said you were. You know what I mean? Yeah. That's why I love, like, they are pressed face to face. And Joel Edgerton, I feel like, is so good as Tom, as he's just laughing in his face. Like, it was the moment where I was like, okay, I kind of like Tom right now, because Tom was like, mental warfare, and I have one.
Yeah. Oh
I
yeah,
also,
100%.
because you pointed out the mistress dog, I wrote down Tom probably. Not Myrtle, she was my second favorite broad. Not enough to love, but she was my substitute squeeze.
That's great. That's great. Um, outside of that stuff, I think what I love the most about this story, and kind of speaking specifically to the love story between Gatsby and um Daisy, is the idea that he wanted everything to be perfect. He wanted to make sure that he was worthy of her before they even like had an opportunity to be together. He wanted to make sure that, he has this like manic episode where he asks Jordan to ask Nick if he'll invite Daisy over for tea so that he can show up at the same time. And you have this moment where he's at Nick's house and he is anxiously awaiting Daisy to come, and she's a couple minutes late, and he freaks out. And then she shows up and he panics and he runs out, and then he tries to make it look like it was a coincidence instead of him just being there the whole time, which was the original plan. And you're just like, this guy is trying to control everything. He's trying to control how they meet. He was trying to control how they met when he was throwing those parties and hoping she would wander in. And I think in the beginning, there's this element of romance where it's like, wow, he loves her so much. He's just there and waiting for the moment where they can reunite. And then you start to realize that he's actually just really trying to make it perfect. And the thing about life is like, you can't make it perfect, like you can't control every detail. It's eventually going to just be left up to chance, right?
It has to be perfect for him because there's two things about him. He's ashamed of who he is.
Yep.
Because he knows at his heart of hearts that he is not Jay Gatsby, that he is this guy who was born poor in I don't remember what state it was. Is his name like Jerry Gatz or Jay Gatz or something?
Jay Gatz, yeah.
He's ashamed of who he is, and he has spent 5 years grieving that he didn't get what he wanted because he's ashamed of who he is. So he does need everything to be perfect in his mind. Otherwise, none of it is worth it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. But then you have the two of them meeting and being together. And he desperately, I think that there is an opportunity for Daisy to kind of have chapter 2 of her life with him. And he doesn't want that. He wants to go right back to where they were when they met 5 years ago. He wants her to just say she never loved Tom, that it was a huge mistake, and she actually loved him, and kind of wipe that slate clean. But obviously, you can't do that. And I think it's so crazy that she has a daughter and they never talk about the daughter. He doesn't say you and whatever her name is will come live with me and I'll take care of her. I'll adopt her as my own. Nothing. He for all intents and purposes, Gatsby is fuck the guy, fuck the kid, come be with me. We're just going to go right back to the way it was.
I didn't even know there was a kid until the end of the movie.
They talk about it. That's the beautiful little full thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. She's got a daughter, and it just goes to show he doesn't want to have the next phase of life with her. He wants to go right back to the way that it used to be. And you just can't do that. You can't rewrite the past. You can't go back to the past. But I do think that what is really important is that even though he is a little delusional, and I think he becomes more and more delusional as the film and the book go on, he really does love her. And I don't think he really I think he really loves the idea of her because she is clearly not worthy of this love that he has. And he's clearly in love with the idea of who he believed she was 5 years ago. But he really is just so hopeful and really believes that it's all going to be okay. And at the end, he ultimately dies alone. And everybody can see that she wasn't going to call and that she was going to do the thing that was best for her. And she let Tom just swoop her up and get her out of there. And she got away with murder scot-free, and Gatsby paid the price for it. And all of those people who came to those parties did not give a shit that he was dead. They didn't care enough to come and pay their respects and say thank you for all those parties he threw. And he died alone.
Yeah, I feel like what you're leaving out, and I think it's also important, is that Gatsby's not a great guy either. Gatsby is not, by any means this paragon of virtue. He has his money from scrupulous means. He is obviously a liar. He is
a gangster.
Yeah, and there's a moment where it's just like, it's one of those moments where that led to me being like, oh my God, Nick is just in love with this guy. He says that Jay is worth the whole Rotten Bunch put together. And I was like, is he though? Like, I was like,
I think so. I think he is. And I think he is because they're all like, they are all doing what they're doing. Like, that's the thing. Do you think Tom, even though Tom is old money, you think Tom like isn't doing things that are bad? Like
he
Tom
obviously is. They're in the same places together.
Right. He's absolutely just as immoral. And I think Gatsby's intentions are better because everything he's doing in order to win over the love of his life. Whereas Tom doesn't really care about people. Tom is just out there trying to make money and fuck some hookers.
I think, like you said, though, like he doesn't see Daisy as a hooker, but she is a possession. She is an item. She is an idea to him. She is not Daisy Buchanan. She is Daisy from 5 years ago that will, he's Ash Ketchum and he's going to catch them all. And Daisy's the last thing he needs.
Yeah.
And I think it's part of, I don't know if this is part of the book, but to me, I'm thinking of like from the idea of it talking about, class and standing. I think it's important to note that when Jay becomes new money, that he and Tom are eerily similar in a lot of ways. And that's why I'm saying that Jay's not so good either, because they're both wealthy. They both don't really care about other people. Like they both present themselves as good people, but they're not that good. And I sort of wish the movie had more time with, like I said, Wilson and in the, what do they call it? The Valley of the Ashes, because I think that is a major crux of, I would assume, the subtext that what is wrong with the classes here, because otherwise Nick is sort of your guy who's not supposed to be like, he's not uber wealthy. He's sort of just friends with all these uber wealthy people, but he's not commentating on that at all because he's sort of our audience surrogate.
Yeah.
So he's instead just like watching and he's like, isn't this wealth great? Like, yeah, who cares about the people working? Like the guy who's working is like, I've never seen Gatsby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I just think that it's probably, I've only seen two Baz Luhrmann movies. I've seen this and Elvis. And I'm like, it's probably, I think, a common Baz Luhrmann thing that I think he loves the style more than he does the substance. And I do want to comment, I think this movie is beautiful.
Yeah.
I think it is gorgeous like 95% of the time, because there's 5% of the time where I'm like, well, that doesn't look that good. You know what I mean? Most of the time,
yeah, there's some green screen that goes wrong.
Yeah, they'll be driving or something, or there's a specific shot where Nick is like at the end of the dock, and I'm like, bro, this does not look good.
Yeah.
But it is worth it for the rest of the time when you're like, wow, this looks great.
Yeah.
Do I still think this movie should have ever been in theaters in 3D? No, but
agreed.
As Grandpa Simpson said, which was the style at the time, like every movie was like, yeah, we're going to be in 3D because, give us more money.
Yeah. I really think what I love the most about this story is that there is this idea that you can start over if you want to. Like you can recreate yourself. You can recreate your relationship. You can change where you live. You can change what you do. You can change your circumstance. But what you can't do is erase who you have been. And if you are not at peace with who you have been and what you have done, then you are probably not going to be able to move forward without consequence or, at all.
I was going to say the same thing, that like, yeah, you can build yourself up, but you can't fabricate what you were before.
Yeah. And you can leave one relationship and start another one, but you can't pretend that you have never, like, you can't pretend that never happened.
As Dr. Phil used to say, you need to get real.
Yeah. One of the many things Dr. Phil has said. Can
I mention like two other quotes that I was like, what? Like his the whole Rotten Bunch thing, like another one that I was like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
I can't remember who said it. It was either Jay or Tom. I don't remember which person says it, but they're talking about the fact that Daisy was driving. So I guess it's Jay. After we left New York, she was very nervous. She thought driving would steady her. And I'm like, what? Nobody's ever thought driving would steady them. Like, what are you talking about? I'm never like, man, I am so stressed. You know what would help right now? If I do the hectic driving where I haven't done it before.
Yeah.
And there's one more at the beginning here. Oh, this isn't the same one, but I like large parties. They're so intimate. Small parties are sort of privacy. And I was like, I guess that makes sense somehow, sort of.
I think that completely makes sense because when you're at a small party, if it's just you and three other people, you can't like go into the corner and like have a one-on-one conversation.
Yeah, it makes sense in that way, but I'm like, inherently, it also sounds kind of stupid. Like a small party, it's more private between the people as a whole. But yes, in a large party, it's easier to disappear in the crowd.
Yeah.
But here it is. Gatsby says he was cheated of his inheritance by Dan Cody's family, or Nick says that, and I'm like, no, they were his family. Like, I'm like, what you mean, Gatsby?
Yeah. But that's exactly, it's like he's just like delusional, but I don't know. I really think that I think the saddest part of this whole thing is the idea that what he believed and what he perceived as love and what it wound up being for him and how hopeful he was all the way up till the end, because the phone rings and he's like, oh, there she is. And then he's dead. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And like I said, in that moment, I feel just as bad for Wilson, who has been manipulated by the old money and ruined his life.
Yeah.
Like that's a character that, like, it's a good actor too, Jason Clarke from like the Planet of the Apes movies and stuff, who I wish was more fleshed out, because I was like, I want to know more about this guy.
Yeah. But I think that's part of the commentary. It's like, we don't know anything about him because nobody cares about him.
Yeah, I think it'd be better though. I need a little bit more. And I guess they do show it in the brief times you see him, that he is working his ass off and getting nowhere. And I think you do, you know what? You do see that.
Yeah.
I think I just want to see more of that in a movie where it's like, we're spending so much time showing like the opulent parties and stuff that I'm like, you could shave a little bit less party to show me a little bit more like rich guy keeping poor guy down.
Yeah. Well, you hear Tom say like making him all these empty promises.
Yeah, he's like, I was just about to bring you the car. Like, I love the way they talk in this. I do.
Yeah, it's great.
Okay. Cap, should we get to some facts?
Let's get to the facts.
I want the truth!
Face the facts, ducks.
Facts have no place with an organized religion.
Alrighty, so let's start with our ratings as we usually do. IMDb gives this a 7.2 out of 10.
Okay.
The tomato meter is much less kind, giving it a 48%, with an average rating of 5.9 out of 10, 146 fresh reviews, and 159 rotten.
The fuck?
The audience score, 67%, an average score of 3.7 out of 5.
I'm upset.
So this was directed by Baz Luhrmann, who, as we mentioned, directed Elvis, Moulin Rouge, and Romeo and Juliet. Written by Baz Luhrmann and Craig Pierce, who also wrote Elvis, Moulin Rouge, and Romeo and Juliet, and based on the book by F. Scott Fitzgerald, who I totally mixed up with Francis Scott Key for like a really long time. But I was like, he did that and wrote, no, that can't be right. Like, I had to look it up.
That's hilarious.
Stars Leonardo DiCaprio, who everybody knows, but I'll just say from Inception, Titanic, and The Departed. Carey Mulligan from Promising Young Woman, She Said, and Drive. Joel Edgerton from The Gift, It Comes at Night, and the remake of The Thing. And lastly, Tobey Maguire, who we all know as Spider-Man, and from Seabiscuit and Pleasantville.
When we introduced this movie, did I say Carey Mulligan?
I think so.
Okay.
The movie won 2 Academy Awards, very deservedly so, for Best Costume Design and Best Production Design.
100%.
The box office, the movie had a budget of $105 million. It grossed $354 million, which I was pretty surprised by, because I'm like, this does not feel like the movie that would pack an audience in. The critics' consensus, while certainly ambitious and every bit as visually dazzling as one might expect, Baz Luhrmann's The Great Gatsby emphasizes visual splendor at the expense of its source material's vibrant art. Should I do some quick reviews?
Please.
Perry Nemiroff from Shakya.com. It's first-rate filmmaking in a number of respects, but those accomplishments rarely support one another, and when certain components of a film only excel on their own, you just can't achieve a fully realized, believable world. Rafer Guzman from Newsday, which is our local Long Island newspaper.
Oh, yeah.
The fourth adaptation of the Fitzgerald novel scores some hits and wild misses, but DiCaprio nails the bullseye.
Okay.
Scott Foundis from Variety. What Luhrmann grasps even less than previous adapters of the tale is that Fitzgerald was, via his surrogate Caraway, offering an eyewitness account of the decline of the American empire, not an invitation to the ball. Last one, Michael Sragow from the Orange County Register. Baz Luhrmann's razzmatazz and bombast in 3D overwhelmed the subtle poetry of F. Scott Fitzgerald's novel. Also
Ah,
overwhelms Francis Scott Key.
yeah.
Some quick behind the scenes facts. DiCaprio wanted to play Jay Gatsby because he was drawn to the idea of a man who came from nothing, created himself solely from his own imagination. When speaking about the role, he said, Gatsby is one of those iconic characters because he'd be interpreted in so many ways. A hopeless romantic, a completely obsessed wacko, or a dangerous gangster clinging to wealth.
That's true. And you can interpret the character in any one of those ways. Obviously, you see which one I choose to interpret him as.
I do. On the first day of shooting, director Baz Luhrmann filmed the scene where Jay Gatsby, Nick Carraway, and Daisy have tea during a rainstorm. Since it was a beautiful spring day, Luhrmann had to use 100,000 liters of water to create the downpour scene in the film. Immediately afterward, it rained for the next 3 days.
That's amazing.
Let me see here. Carey Mulligan revealed that she disliked her performance as Daisy Buchanan. She believed the vast scale of the project overwhelmed her at the time. After completing it, she decided to focus on smaller films with more tightly knit casts and crews. The phrase old sport is said 55 times during the movie. All but 4 of those are by Leonardo DiCaprio as Jay Gatsby.
Yep.
That motherfucker would be like, you're my best friend, old sport. Like, it was like, do you know my name? It's Dick. My name's Dick, man. Many of the period accurate cars came out of Jay Leno's automobile collection.
Wow, that's so cool.
And Baz Luhrmann cameos as the waiter that brings Nick to Jordan's table to meet for tea after his lunch with Gatsby.
Huh. That's crazy. I don't even know what Baz Luhrmann looks like. I guess now I do.
He's got white hair. Like, he's a younger guy with white hair, I feel like.
Interesting. He played the waiter. Okay.
I will remember it the next time I watch it, maybe.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. I'm never going to go back and watch The Great Gatsby and look for Baz Luhrmann specifically ever again. But we can talk about the mail.
I mean, I guess.
Mail time! When you control the mail, you control information.
Mom asked me to ask you if there's any mail for us here by mistake.
What?
All right, let's start with some comments. We just got a couple on The Truman Show. And the first one is, Gab, I think you're going to have to issue an apology here.
No, I will not.
Scotty Cameron. I did Venmo Gab. I Venmoed her $1. She even acknowledged back in the You've Got Mail episode at 38 minutes and 27 seconds marker. And you know what? I just remembered him talking about it. And he specifically was talking about the fact that he had $5 in his Venmo and he sent you one and he sent somebody else one and he only had $3 left or something.
That's right. Oh,
I just wanted to correct the record.
All right. Listen, Scotty, I'm sorry. You're right. You did Venmo me. Obviously the Venmos have gotten bigger and better, so your tiny little $1 has become just a blip in my mind, but I do acknowledge that you did contribute to my well-being. I appreciate you. I think you're very smart. We rely on you for a lot. I'm sorry you're so young, and also I wish you the best in your middle school career. Scotty, you rock.
And that was our new segment, Apology Time. Continuing with Scotty's message. Last thing on Star Trek / Galaxy Quest, I would say Galaxy Quest can still be funny if you haven't seen Star Trek, but the funniest jokes in the film are funny if you have seen Star Trek. It's like seeing Spaceballs or Austin Powers without seeing Star Wars or James Bond. Oh, and the answer to Pedro's question is either Peter and Lois Griffin or Homer and Marge Simpson. Maybe Peter and Lois because they are a worse couple than Homer and Marge. Which Pedro's couple is, what was your favorite shitty couple? His question was, what is your favorite shitty couple? Which we did not fully understand, but his answers were better than our non-answers.
Yeah, it put me on the spot and it made me uncomfortable and I didn't really have an answer. So, but you know what, Dylan, on the subject of things I didn't have an answer for, I do have an answer to Scotty's question, which was about movies you should not watch before you die.
Movies you die before you watch.
Yeah. Movies you should die before you watch. And the scary thing is, as I'm starting to say this, I am forgetting what movie it was that I had decided on. So it's going to come to me in the middle of this mail segment and I will launch it at you as soon as I remember.
Okay, a very quick comment from Andy. Do one on Fight Club. So we have to put that in our suggested, which we got to start working on some of those ones that have been suggested by people because there's just a bunch in there now.
Yeah. Who's Andy?
I don't know off the top of my head.
Well, Andy, you haven't really proven yourself as somebody I need to listen to, but okay.
Andy, in order for us to take suggestions seriously, we require at least $1.01 Venmo to Gab.
Yes.
But also, like, maybe we'll do Fight Club because it's a pretty good movie.
I've never
Have you seen Fight? God, we should do Fight Club then. I feel like it's very overplayed by this point, though. But okay.
Yeah, but still, I'd be willing to watch it. I should know it.
Now to some emails. So our first one is from DJ Barons, who you might remember as My Fat Face.
Ah, My Fat Face.
Just thought of another movie to recommend. Phantom of the Paradise, vastly underrated in the shadow of Rocky Horror.
Oh boy, that sounds like something neither one of us would like.
Well, it's something neither of us have heard. Why are you assuming it's the same as Phantom of the Opera?
No, I'm assuming it's going to be like Rocky Horror, which is going to be kind of a campy musical, and one of those
Phantom
like
of the
weird.
Paradise is a 1974 American rock musical comedy horror film written and directed by Brian De Palma and scored by and starring Paul Williams. Paul Williams, who was actually the voice of the Penguin on Batman the Animated Series.
Well, in that case, sign
It all comes
me up.
back. It all wraps around.
It really does. I didn't realize that this was like a low-key Batman podcast, but here we are.
I mean, everything I do is low-key Batman. This is interesting, though. I guess it came out right around the same time as Rocky Horror.
All right.
Never heard of it. The tagline, he sold his soul for rock and roll.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, we'll have to add it to the list.
Yeah.
On to the next email from someone who I don't believe has ever emailed before, Connor. Subject, horror films. Hey guys, I haven't written a non-professional casual email since probably 2004. So this feels funny, but I just wanted to say how much I enjoy the podcast. Oh, Connor.
Aw, thanks, Connor.
You have touched our hearts in the most fond way that you can without sending Gab money. Found you a while back from Georgia Rules. I'm a huge Lindsay fan and stuck around since.
Me too, baby. Let's go, Connor. Lindsay, and congrats to Lindsay on her pregnancy. She looks beautiful. She's glowing. We love it. We love to see it.
Connor, one of the 20 some odd people who listened to that episode. So I have to know, I got to put the question out to Connor, and I guess to you, Gab. Would you be excited for that Freaky Friday sequel?
Oh my God. Yes, absolutely. And oddly enough, I think Lindsay does a good job, but I think Jamie Lee Curtis is really the one who stole that show, obviously.
Would it just be
even though
like
I don't
Strange
think
Saturday?
she's sexy. Shut up.
Suspicious Sundays. Just another
okay.
manic Monday. Okay,
Enough.
I'm done.
Please, you're upsetting me.
I love horror films, and I know you've covered a few, but do you have any plans to cover any of the big slashers? Scream, Halloween, Nightmare on Elm Street, etc. Feel like they'd be really fun. Also, I unironically think Scary Movie is a film to watch before you die. It's the perfect example of what a parody film should be, as well as a time capsule of the time period. Thanks for making such an entertaining show, Connor.
Aw, thanks, Connor.
Scary Movie, I do like the Scary Movie movies, the first two particularly. I don't think we've had it on our list, but maybe that's something to consider. And I know Scream is on my list to eventually get to. And you've never seen it, right? Oh, yeah.
Scream is the one with this guy, right?
Yes, we've had this conversation before.
Yeah.
Gab is making the physical embodiment of the ghost face. It's quite good.
Yes. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. One of my many talents.
On to our next email. I will say we don't have an email from Pedro Enrique this week, but it's the return of the Keen Machine.
Oh, yay.
Mail following the Truman Show. Greetings, Dylan and Gab. Apologies for my absence. My weekends have been very hectic as of late, causing me to fall behind on podcast mail. Nevertheless, I have returned. I unfortunately have not seen the Truman Show, but I've heard great things about it. I'm glad you both enjoyed it. The premise seems fascinating and actually reminds me of a random book I read back in elementary school about a boy who was raised by a corporation and lived in their skyscraper headquarters, isolated from the real world. It was a weird book that I cannot even remember the title of, let alone my details of the plot. I digress. Musicals? Did somebody say musicals? I love musicals.
Of course he does.
And if you ever decide to watch one for the podcast, I expect A, for it to be a good pick, and B, for you to give it worthy praise. If you need a former Theater Kids correspondence for such a task, you know where to find me. Also, Gab, you are simply wrong about Phantom of the Opera. Save the hate for a genuinely terrible musical like Carousel. Now that's a skip.
Yeah, I suppose. You know what's funny? He went out of his way to DM me on Instagram to tell me I was wrong about Phantom of the Opera, and I'm standing my ground on this, but he was very passionate about it, clearly.
In general, or specifically the movie version of Phantom of the Opera? Like the Gerard Butler one?
I'm going to say...
That's the one you were talking about, right?
All of it. I mean, I haven't seen the movie. I've only seen it on Broadway. But Dylan, anytime we talk about people who don't live in New York, my gut instinct is that when they think about musicals, they're either thinking about the production their high school did or the movie.
I gotta tell you, I can only think of, I think it's like Joseph and the Technicolor Dreamcoat. Is that the name of it? What's the name of the Joseph one?
Yeah.
I can only think of your version of that I saw you do.
I didn't do, no. I did Godspell.
Oh, that's the same thing to me, isn't it? Is it not the same?
I mean, they're both
are
Jesus-y.
these two not the same?
I did Godspell.
As a young Jewish boy, neither one was that appealing to me.
But you know what's funny? You know who's the biggest fan of that musical that I've ever met in my life? 3, 2, 1, your mother.
Of Godspell?
Yeah, she loves Godspell. She was so excited when she found out I was doing it. You guys came more than once.
Maybe that's why I'm mixing up all these Jesus-y things.
Probably. But yeah, she's a big fan of that musical.
I don't know. Not my savior, not my favorite play. Just saying.
Yeah, I hear that. I hear that.
Yeah. Do you know anything about Carousel?
I know it sucks.
Okay. Wow. Hot takes on musicals. I do not know anything about either one of these except is Phantom of the Opera the one with the pig nose?
What?
I think I'm mixing Phantom of the Opera up with the old horror movie.
Phantom of the Opera is the guy with the half mask.
Yeah, doesn't he take the half mask off and he's got like a deformed pig nose? Or is that only in the old horror movie?
Now I don't know. Maybe that was the part I slept through.
Because I know there's like romantic-y Gerard Butler one where I'm sure he looks like Gerard Butler and like he's not scary looking, but I think there's like 1930s silent film Phantom of the Opera also.
Maybe.
I'm fact checking this in real time. We don't have time to wait for Scotty to get to this later.
Yeah. No, we need this right now. The chandelier falls and she falls in love with him. You know, it's classic. It's horrible.
Well, I've typed in Phantom of the Opera pig nose to Google and it's not coming up immediately.
Yeah, I don't think that that's a thing.
What am I thinking?
Again, I'm not an expert. I hate this. I saw it once. I fell asleep. I have never fucked with it since.
Okay, no, there is the 1925 Phantom of the Opera, and he does have a pig nose.
Oh, scary.
Yeah,
Ew.
he removes the mask, and it's all like, well,
yeah,
it's silent, so it's more like.
You can't see this, listener, but Dylan is making the scare, like the kind of.
I was making sure for there to be
scared.
no sound, though. Yes.
Yeah. But I just wanted to make sure they knew. Damn, I'm so sorry that I brought up that movie that you should die before you watch, because the other day I was on the subway and it popped into my head and I was like, oh, that's a movie I would rather die than watch. And then I was like, I should write that down. And then I was like, now I'll remember. And now I don't remember.
You should have wrote it down.
I should have. God damn it.
We need to add to our shared notes list of movies to die before you watch.
Yeah, we do.
Sorry, I felt a burp coming there. Okay. Finally, to finish up, Keen wrote that in there. Finally, I wanted to say that I always love the stories about your grandma. They get me laughing every time. I hope to be half as iconic when I'm old. And no, I could not hear the screaming/crying baby. Until next time, keep it keen.
Keen.
So now we need to know we just got to ignore that baby.
Yeah. Baby's actually been pretty quiet today, all things considered.
And we have one last email from Scotty Cameron.
Nice.
He wants a refund on his Venmo. No, I'm just kidding. Subject is Truman Show. Hey, Dylan and Gab, great show as always. The Truman Show is absolutely a movie to watch before you die. I've seen the film twice, and both times I was surprised that Jim Carrey was Truman. I guess I'm so used to him playing characters like Evan Almighty and Ace Ventura, so when he takes a more serious role, it is surprising.
Stop right where you are. Stop where you are. He owes us an apology immediately.
How dare you besmirch Bruce Almighty in this way? It
is Bruce Almighty. Evan Almighty is Steve Carell, and that movie sucked hot garbage dick. Oh my God, there's a movie that you should die before you watch.
And I love Steve Carell, but terrible movie.
Terrible movie. It wasn't Steve Carell's fault.
No. Should we continue on now that we have corrected the record?
Yeah. You know what? I just want to say that my apology to Scotty is it is now negated because he just did that. We're even.
So now that he has purposefully offended, it is canceled out. Well, not purposely, but now that he's offended, it's canceled out.
Yes, 100%. Okay. Yeah. So we're back on level. Yeah. Level playing field.
In fact, the first time I saw the film, I didn't know that it was Carrey at all until I looked at the screened entry for The Truman Show and saw a trivia item that stated that the scene where Truman draws a space scene with a bar of soap on his mirror was improvised by Carrey. That made me go, wait a minute, this was Jim Carrey? The film shows just how layered of an actor Jim Carrey is. Scotty, are you like face blind?
Scotty, were you 4 when you watched this for the first time? Like,
if so, did a lot of this go over your head at the time? Because it would have gone over my head a lot at the time.
Scotty, I would say that that's a story you don't share anymore.
This is a story to die before you share.
Yeah.
In general, I think when comedic actors take on serious roles and do well, it's always impressive. It's one of the reasons I think Steve Carell should have won the Best Lead Actor Oscar for his portrayal of Evan Almighty. No, he said John DuPont in Foxcatcher. That he was very good in that movie.
I didn't see it.
It's pretty good.
What is it about? I'm not going to say I don't care. I genuinely want to know.
Okay, because I had to stop at a moment for my mind to be like, I can't be hurt again. God, who plays? Is it Channing Tatum or Mark Ruffalo? Channing Tatum and Mark Ruffalo play 2 pro wrestlers who are training for the Olympics with John DuPont as their coach, who really is just providing money and has no knowledge of this. And there may or may not be somebody murdered. And you're probably better off watching documentaries about it than the narrative movie, but it's a good movie.
Is that like one of those sexual misconduct?
I don't remember anything sexual.
Okay. Okay. Usually when it's a coach, it's like, somebody was doing something they weren't supposed to do. But okay.
There was no diddlers.
Oh my God. Did I tell you about that? Or did you just know? So
No, what?
no. So we were talking about musicals. I think based on the podcast, Corey and I were talking about musicals or I don't know. We were talking about Gwen Stefani, maybe. I'm not sure. But I said, have you ever seen Fiddler on the Roof? Because as you recall, when we were kids, I feel like GOG put on Fiddler on the Roof for us all the time. Like that was just like a VHS that we watched a lot. And so to me, it's like very like that's just like a normal reference, like people understand. And I said, have you ever seen Fiddler on the Roof? And he immediately was like, oh man, something about fiddling her on the roof. And like now he just says it constantly where he's like, oh, she's going to go get fiddled on the roof. And it's very annoying. And I feel like
I'm like, the fiddle's a delightful instrument. Why is he making this into diddler on the roof?
It's just weird that you would have gone straight to that because that's what he went to when I said Fiddler on the Roof. And I just feel like I'm surrounded by people that can't get their mind right.
That story took me places because I thought that was going to be about Gwen Stefani. And I was like, is she a diddler? Like, it's like, I did not know this.
Well, she maybe this is what I said. She does that. She has that song Rich Girl, which is and to me, I'm always like, this is so fucking weird because Rich Man is sung by a big fat Jewish guy shimmying and whatnot. So to hear Gwen Stefani do a pop cover, I'm like, this just feels so wrong. But most people don't know that that's from Fiddler on the Roof. So they just think it's like a cool song.
You know what? It's very weird when you know that it comes from like the most Jewish musical of all time. Yeah. But it works. She made it work.
Yeah, she did. She also on that album, oddly enough, had a song that sampled the Lonely Goat Herd from Sound of Music. High on the hill with a lonely goat herd, lay, hoo. She sampled
She was just like out of ideas, I guess, at the time. And that's why I feel like she just dropped off the face of the planet, didn't she?
No, she married Blake Shelton, and now she is like on The Voice or whatever.
Well, to me, being on The Voice is dropping off the face of the planet.
Same, but she's not like out of... No, I don't know anymore.
People must be. They keep putting it out.
That show started very interestingly because it was like, can you have a pop star who's grotesque looking if you just hear their voice and don't know how ugly they are? But now they're like all normal looking people. Like it was fun in the beginning when they were like old and saggy and disgusting.
And now that's just Simon Cowell.
Right.
Who just keeps trying to plastic surgery himself, right? I keep thinking of, and I feel really bad thinking of it, the woman who won like Britain's Got Talent, and
that's
people
exactly
like,
who I'm
wow,
thinking
look
of.
at this ugly broad who can sing. Like,
yeah, she sang a song from Les Mis. We keep going back to musicals. She sang, I believe it was "I Dream a Dream."
Yes.
Yeah. I don't remember what her name was, but yeah, 100%.
I can't remember what her name was either. But
it was an ugly
she had like
name.
She was one of those people who like American Idol who had like a couple minutes of success and then was gone forever.
Yeah, well, unfortunately, you can't really be a classical singer and make it like in pop music, especially when you're old. And she probably didn't really care all that much. But yeah. Again, like look at all these people from The Voice or like all these American Idol winners outside of the original like 7 or 8 first seasons of American Idol. Like all these people are irrelevant.
I mean, most of the people from even those first few seasons are.
Yeah.
It also feels like a lot of the time it's the person who didn't win it all that ended up being more famous.
Yeah. Well, I think there's like something to that because I think all of their records, like I think even if you lose, you sign a contract that you're going to put out records through whatever label is associated with American Idol. So it's in their best interest to have the person who is less successful win because they'll sell more albums, or not less successful, but like less beloved win, so that they will sell records just simply by virtue of the fact that they won American Idol, but the runner up is going to sell well because people like them more. I don't think that was the case in the first season because Justin Guarini kind of sucked, but like Clay Aiken was definitely more beloved than Ruben Studdard.
I was just about to bring up Justin Guarini, which is a sentence no one has ever said before.
Shut up. What were you going to say?
I was like, you know those Dr. Pepper commercials where it's like, it's the sweet one.
Oh, yes.
I'm like, it's Justin Guarini. And I'm like, you know what? Good for him that he like got something long lasting out of all this because he was just like that not successful guy.
No, he wasn't. And they made that movie From Justin to Kelly, which I didn't see, but
Massive
there's a
bomb.
movie you should die before you watch. Yeah. And so disappointed that I can't remember what I thought of, but he took like 12 years between American Idol and that Dr. Pepper commercial. It's just so strange. Like Did he probably auditioned for that? You know what I mean? Like they
Oh,
didn't
yeah.
call him. Like that's
No, nobody's
crazy.
like, get me Justin Guarini for this.
But you know what's really weird about that commercial? In the bottom corner, it said Justin Guarini as Lil Sweet. Like, no, who gets credited in a commercial? That's unheard of.
Do you think he like asked them to do it?
Yes, I do. Because otherwise, would you have been like, oh my God, that's Justin Guarini? I would have just been like, oh, that's just some random actor.
I feel like I didn't even realize it from the commercial. I feel like I probably saw some article that was like, do you know who Little Sweet is? And I was like, who's Little Sweet? And I had to click on it.
No, I promise you saw it. You knew it was him because it was in the bottom left-hand corner of the commercial every time.
You don't know what I saw.
Fuck yeah, I do. All right, let's get the show on the road, please.
To finish up Scotty's email, Carell does a phenomenal job as John Dupont in Foxcatcher with that part, to the point where you hate him because of how well he portrays a despicable person, to the point where you almost forget he's also Michael Scott and Brick Tamland. It also makes me respect these actors more, particularly if it was an actor I disliked prior to seeing them in a serious role, like Adam Sandler, until I learned he was in Punch Drunk Love. Then I learned Sandler was capable of delivering compelling performances. I gotta be honest, the movie Click, which is not a great movie, Adam Sandler, that son of a bitch, he makes me cry.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
When he's doing that Family Comes First part, I'm like, fuck. I remember seeing it in theaters with my mom and brother, and I was like, don't you cry at this, Dylan. Don't you fucking do it. And then I remember being at home and seeing it at home by myself, and I was like, now you can cry. I was like, you got me.
Aww.
Thank you, Dylan, for committing to the Saw bit. My answer to that question would be Biodome. I saw that movie on TV and thought to myself, isn't this considered one of the worst movies ever made? I decided to watch it to see how bad it was. I instantly regretted it. I'd rather watch Morbius for an eternity than watch Biodome ever again. At least Morbius, I can joke about it being peak cinema when it isn't. In case I don't see you again, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, Scotty.
Aww.
That is our mail. Thank you, Scotty. Thank you, Keen. Thank you, Connor. Thank you, My Fat Face. Thank you all for your comments and your emails, and Andy for your suggestion. And I guess now we can get back to our verdicts for Fight Club. No, oh my God, for Fight Club. Our verdicts for The Great Gatsby. God damn it.
Do or do not. There is no try.
The guilty will be punished.
Sentence is death.
Gab, I feel like I should let you start, but real quick, I want to mention one fact I quickly forgot. As a Long Island native, Fort Washington is now where West Egg was.
Oh my God, that's so weird because I always assumed it was like East Hampton and West Hampton.
That would have also made sense, but according to whatever random stuff I saw, Fort Washington is the actual place.
Well, Port
Which I
Washington
think it makes
is
sense
like,
because Port Washington's along the Sound, isn't it?
yeah, I guess, but I just would have thought it was but I guess that makes sense as to why they were just driving back and forth to the city, because I kept thinking like that's like a 3-hour drive.
When they took a taxi from Manhattan to Long Island, I was like, bro, they are wealthy. I was like, wow.
Yeah. Nowadays they just take helicopters, but if it was Port Washington, like that drive is like 40 minutes.
They're passing by me on Long Island Railroad like, wow, look at that car.
Oh my God. All right. Well, listen, I love this movie. This movie makes me cry every time. I think the performances are great. I think it really goes to show that you can have what you want, but you can't be precious about it. And that you can't control everything and you can't erase what has already been. I think it's beautiful. I think it's heartbreaking. I think that it is gorgeous to look at and the music is phenomenal. I think it's a movie to watch before you die. And at the very least, I think it is 100% a book to read before you die. Dylan, what say you?
Knowing nothing about the book, was the surface story that interesting to me? No. Was there subtext that was very interesting to me? Yes. And I think that we could talk about this way longer if we wanted to. Do I think that the acting was great? Yes. Do I think the movie looks spectacular? Yes. So I'm going to hit you with the Legend of Billie Jean style. I probably won't watch it again, but I'll call it a movie to watch before you die because it should be seen at least once.
Yes.
It looks great. And it is certainly interesting just in the production design, worthy of the watch.
Wow. Do you feel sorry for me? Are you doing this out of...
Is this a pity movie to watch before you die?
Yeah.
No, it's I thought it looked really spectacular, and I think it is worth watching once just for the visuals alone.
Okay,
except for the 5% of the time they look terrible. But I've already said it. I can't take it back. It's done.
Put it in the best day of my life. Put it in the books, Howie. This is amazing. I'm happy. Thank you. Read the book. Read the book.
Gab, I told you I'm illiterate.
Damn, I keep forgetting. Also, one last thing I love about this, and it touched my heart, was that Nick and Daisy are cousins, and they're obviously very close. And it just made me think, like, oh, I'm close with my cousin.
I hope you're no Daisy, Gab.
No. But honestly, are you and Nick? Let's be real. Probably. All right, Dylan, where can people find us?
You can find us on YouTube, Spotify, all the podcast places, and you can send us a voice message at anchor.fm/movies to watch, or you can send us an email at
movies to watch before you die at gmail.com.
Thank you so much for listening. Keep sending in some emails, some voice messages. We'd love to hear what you have to say about The Great Gatsby or anything else you want us to watch.
Yep, absolutely. And we will hear you next week, or you'll hear us next week, I guess. Okay,
Bye-bye.
bye.
What about it, old sport?
Don't you call me old sport.